Hi viewers, welcome to NCKHUB Consulting and Training. As part of our Golang playlist, in this particular video, we will be discussing on Golang decision-making statements. Okay, what are the decision-making statements that are available in Golang? And what are the different features that this particular Golang is providing as per for these decision-making statements compared to other programming languages? Okay, so decision making statements as a pretty similar functionality across the programming languages like C, Java, C++, and Golang. So there is nothing different in terms of the functionalities or the operations that it is going to provide. And what are the types that are available in Golang? If you ask that, there are two types. What are they? If and switch. So in these two cases, we have many more sub varieties which we can go through the practical examples and then understand like scenario by scenario. Okay, now we'll just quickly deep dive into the program. So starting this video, I will be using Visual Studio. In my earlier videos, I was using IntelliJ, but because of IntelliJ Ultimate Edition no longer being supported and not all the features are available in the community version, so I prefer to go with the Visual Studio. So starting this video, all my examples will most likely be in Visual Studio. There are some comparisons when it comes to IntelliJ and Visual Studio. So in IntelliJ, you are supposed to create every Go file with a main method. For example, if a particular package or a folder have 10 Go files, in each and every Go file, you are allowed to have a main method, and that same file can have some other functions as well, and those functions can be called into the main method within the same file. But whereas in case of Visual Studio, for a particular package or a folder, you are supposed to have only one particular file that will have a main method. All other files will be considered as a sub files for that particular main file, and each or any functionality that you are implementing in those sub files should be invoked from a main file. Then only we will be able to execute it. For example, let us say here we have a decision making folder. Okay, in this folder, how many are there files? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Total 6 files are there. Out of 6, if you observe very clearly, only this decision making.go will have only the main method. Other files doesn't have the main method. If you see this if examples, so you don't have the main method. You have only one method, if examples. Inside that, all the examples were provided. Similarly, if you go to switch example, only one file, one method we have. Inside that method only, all the implementation were there. You can have a question, what will happen if I try to have a main method again? Immediately, compiler will throw an error saying like you cannot have multiple main methods inside a folder. Okay, so this is for Visual Studio implementations. If you are still going ahead with the IntelliJ and if you have the support for Ultimate Edition, yeah, you are still free to do it with each and every file having a separate main method. But if you are following me and if you are coming to Visual Studio for these kind of practices, please make sure you need to have this difference noted. And apart from this, from a setup standpoint or installation standpoint, it is pretty much same that we do in IntelliJ. All we need to do is make sure we have all the needed plugins available and make sure all the plugins are up to date. Okay, there is no other specific thing compared to the IntelliJ. Now, let us quickly deep dive into the decision making things. So the first thing that we have is if examples. Okay, so how many examples or how many types of if things are there here? So the starting with basic if condition and then followed by if else and then followed by if else ladder and then followed by if with the initialization statement and followed by nested if. So these are the different varieties of if implementations that we have in Golang. Let us go one by one. the very first thing and foremost thing, if condition. So before deep diving into the actual examples, I just wanted to highlight couple of points here. If you observe very clearly, if keyword is followed by a condition, this condition's output will be either true or false, which is nothing but a Boolean value. Okay, that is pretty common in all the programming languages. Now, the different thing is this particular condition usually in programs or in programming languages like C or Java, you see that there is a parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis, this particular code will be written or the condition will be written. But whereas in Golang, this parenthesis is not at all required. Even if you try to put the parenthesis, the editor will remove the parenthesis. That is the very first difference. The second difference is, even though if you write a single line of code in a if block, it has to be surrounded with curly braces. Without curly braces, you cannot write a if block. This is very clear. Whereas in case of Java, for a single if state for a single statement inside a if block, you don't need curly braces. You can just normally write it. But whereas in case of Golang, you definitely need curly braces. Without curly braces, you cannot write. And for conditions, you don't need parentheses. Okay, these are the very important points, and the examples whatever we have provided here are pretty simple examples. I don't want to make something complex here and confuse the target audience, so that's where I was pretty clear on this. Okay, in the very first example of basic if condition, I have taken a is equal to 10 with short variable declaration syntax, and I was trying to do it with whether the value of a is greater than 0 or not. If the value of a is greater than 0, I'm just entering inside the if condition, and I'm trying to execute this particular block of code. Okay, this is a very basic syntax, and followed by this, the next level of the next type of if thing that we have here is if else. So it is kind of telling the compiler, if the condition is true, I need this block of code to be executed, or else another block of code to be executed. We are giving compiler only two options, either this or that. Based on the condition, it has to decide. That is what we are trying to convey it. So for this, I have taken example of variable p, which is a short variable declaration. Using short variable declaration, I declared a p variable and assigned a value 22 to it. And if I try to mouse over here, you can see the type as int. So basically, without defining a data type, compiler itself determined a specific data type for that of the based on the value that assigned to a variable. Okay. Now, what is the condition? If the p percentile 2 is equal to 0, the value assigned to p is a even number. If the percentile is not equal to 0, then the value assigned to p is a odd number. So only two conditions, either this or that. That's all. And the third type that we have here in if else is if else ladder. Okay, so if you see here, if you have multiple conditions to be executed for a particular scenario, then you will go to the concept of if else ladder. If else ladder will provide an option to evaluate multiple conditions. It's not like either this or that. It will give the scope to have multiple options. So if you see the example here, I took a variable as score 85 with using short variable declaration. Again, if you mouse over here, you will understand very clearly the type of variable that the compiler determined is integer, and if the score is greater than 90, it will decide as grade A. Else if the score is greater than 80, it will decide as grade B. Else if the score greater than 70, it will decide as grade C. If all the above conditions are not satisfied, if it comes to the final condition, then this condition will be automatically executed. The last one alone will not have any condition, but all the above things will have the condition checks. Okay, if all the condition checks are not satisfied, finally this particular block of code will be executed without any condition. Okay. Now the next type we have here is if with initialization statement. So this is something different when compared to other programming languages. Why? What is it different compared to other programming languages? Okay. Before declaring or before doing some conditional check, the Golang feature, in this particular feature, Golang is providing an option to the developer to initialize some variables. Okay. The initialization of the variables followed by assigning some values to that variable. When I say assigning some values to that variable values can be of any type. It can be output of a function, it can be a hard-coded value, or it can be a constant value, or whatever it may be. Okay. It is giving an option to declare or initialize some variables. For example, here I have taken a very simple example saying like I hard-coded the value as 15. Basically, what we can do is we can call a method here, do something method. So we can tell output of this particular method should be assigned to this variable, and after this output of this variable is assigned to output of this function is assigned to this variable. Then using this variable, I can do some conditional checks, and if that conditional check satisfies, then only I can ask the compiler to execute the block of the code inside the if condition. So that level of implementation can be done. Usually in other programming languages, if you have to implement these kind of scenarios, what we do is we explicitly declare a variable here and then get the output of the method that we are supposed to take it and then assign it to it and then do a conditional check here. But whereas in case of Golang, it is not required to explicitly declare something here and assign some values to it, kind of initialization, and then come to the if and then do conditional checks. You can do everything here itself. Okay, that is a major advantage that we have. And another advantage is whatever variables that you are initializing here, the scope of these variables will be the whole if. Okay, outside if it is not applicable, but here when you are doing this initialization, the conditional check, and inside these if conditional statements, all these areas, these particular variables, whatever you are initializing, these variables are within scope. Out of this condition if block, when I say out of this if block from here to here, out of this is the variable is out of scope. Now let us say if I try to access the number from here, then it will automatically throw an error. Okay. It should be accessed only in these conditions or inside this if condition. Outside if condition, the variables are undefined or out of scope. And the last thing that we have is nested if, which is pretty common like other programming languages. So inside a if condition, you can go with another if else or if else if ladder or only if condition, whatever way you want, or if with the initialization statement or whatever way you want. So all I wanted to let you know is inside if we can use any kind of if else or if else ladder. In other words, nested if is possible in Golang. Okay, so in this video we have covered what the types of if implementations that we have covered is basic if condition and if else, which is nothing but either this option or that option, giving an option to the compiler, and the third one is if else if ladder, where you will have multiple options to be handled, and the fourth one that we have here is if with initialization statement. If with initialization statement is something new which is there in Golang, and you will not see that in other programming languages. And the last one we have is the nested if condition. So as I mentioned in the starting this video, we will be trying to debug everything or execute everything or do the practical examples in Visual Studio. Now the question is how to execute this program. Usually in IntelliJ, if you just click on the run button, the output will be coming. So where do we have run button here? So here we have an option run and debug. So go to here main. And because here we have the main method, right? So go here, click on run and debug. See, here you have got the output. So basically, from the main method, I am not calling all the methods. I am calling only one method, which is if examples. So where is this if examples is implemented? Inside this if examples dot go. So from this particular main file, we are asking the compiler to go to this particular method and then execute all the logic inside this. So what is the very first condition? If a is greater than 0, print this. So a value is 10, 10 is greater than 0. So it is printing basic if a is greater than 0. And the second one we have is value of p 22. So 22 percentile 2 is equal to 0 means even number. If it is not equal to 0, odd number. Yeah, 22 is equal to, so it is a even number. So if you see here, p is an even number. So that is what we got here. P is an even number. Okay, now the third one is if else ladder. So what is the logic that we have written? If score is greater than or equal to 90, grade A. If score is greater than or equal to 80, grade B. So as per the value that I have taken here is 85. So 85 greater than 80 is true, but 85 greater than or equal to 90 is false. So this should be grade B. If you see here, the output is grade B. Now the fourth one is initialization statement. So initialization statement here, what is the variable that I initialized number with what is the value? 15 is the value. So here I'm just trying to check 15 percentile of 5 is equal to 0. If it is equal to 0, then it will go inside it and it is going to print a statement. It is a multiple of 5. Okay, 15 is a multiple of 5. That's all. And the last one we have is nested if. So first it will check whether it is greater than or equal to 0 and then it will go for percentile. If the percentile is equal to 0, then it will print as an even number or it will print as a odd number. So this basic example here I have provided is to let you all know that nested if is possible inside the or nested if is possible with Golang. So these examples, whatever we are showing, might be a little simpler ones, but this will help you in understanding the concepts in a better way. Using these as references, you should be able to implement the bigger or real-time scenarios. So this is what we have for this video. In the next video, we will cover the examples with switch because we have multiple examples with switch. So within single video, it might be too long to take it up. Instead, I wish to cover this in a separate video for all switch related examples. So that's all for this video. Thanks for watching.